The white roses began to shake in my hands when I saw Ethan across the hotel lobby. He had told me he was working late that evening. Instead, he was standing beside a woman in a blue dress, with one arm around her waist. 2 children stood in front of them. A little girl held his hand, and a boy leaned against his side. Above them, a silver sign read, "Riverside School Family Night." I had come to deliver flowers for the event. Ethan had come as a husband and a father. In one quiet second, I understood that almost everything he had told me was incomplete. He turned his head, and for a moment, I thought he saw me. I stepped behind a tall plant near the front desk. My heart beat so hard that I could hardly hear the music in the ballroom. Outside, rain had started to fall over Wilmington. I walked 2 blocks without opening my umbrella. By the time I reached my car, my hair was wet, my shoes were full of water, and the life I had believed in was gone. For months earlier, I had not been looking for love. My name is Nora, and I was 32 then. I worked at a small flower shop near the river, where most days smelled of roses, wet leaves, and fresh soil. My closest friend, Grace, lived 3 streets away. We often drank coffee after work or walked along the river on Sunday mornings. She knew that I had stopped dating after 2 painful relationships. Ethan first entered the shop during a spring storm. The rain was heavy, and the wind pushed the door open behind him. He held a broken umbrella and looked as if he had run several blocks. He needed flowers for a woman at his office who was leaving her job. He said he knew nothing about flowers, so I chose yellow roses, white daisies, and green leaves. He watched carefully while I worked. Most customers looked at their phones while they waited. Ethan asked why I had chosen those colors. When I explained that they felt warm and hopeful, he smiled and said, "Then you chose exactly right." Before leaving, he noticed water coming under the front door. Without being asked, he helped me move 2 boxes away from the rain. Then he held the door closed while I placed a towel along the floor. He returned the next week. This time, he bought a small plant for his desk. He remembered my name, and he brought back the flower bucket he had borrowed during the storm. After that, he came often. Sometimes he needed flowers for work. Sometimes he bought 1 small bunch and said his apartment looked too empty. That should have been my first warning. He always spoke as if he lived alone, but he never clearly said that he did. I heard what I wanted to hear and did not ask the question that mattered. He remembered small things. He knew I preferred tea to coffee. He knew I loved blue flowers, even though real blue flowers were hard to find. He knew I became quiet when I was worried. One evening, the lock on the shop door stopped working. Ethan arrived just before closing and found me trying to fix it with a small screwdriver. He laughed gently, took off his jacket, and helped me. The repair took almost an hour. Afterward, I made tea in the back room. We sat between empty boxes and flower paper while the street outside became dark. "This shop feels peaceful," he said. "It feels like a place where people can breathe." No one had ever described my little shop that way. His words stayed with me after he left. The next morning, I caught myself watching the door and hoping he would return. 2 weeks later, he asked me to dinner. We went to a small restaurant near the water, far from the busy part of town. He chose a table in the corner, where few people could see us. At the time, I thought he wanted privacy because he was shy. I did not notice that he kept looking toward the entrance. I did not notice that he paid in cash and did not want a picture together. After dinner, we walked beside the water. He held my hand, then stopped beneath a streetlight and kissed me. The kiss was gentle, and for the first time in years, I felt safe with someone. Our relationship grew quickly, but it stayed inside small spaces. He visited the shop near closing time. We ate dinner at my apartment. We drove outside the city when we wanted to spend an afternoon together. He was never free on Saturday mornings. He rarely answered after 8 at night. On holidays, he disappeared, then returned with warm words and careful apologies. Each time I asked, he had an answer. His company had a problem. His mother needed help. A friend was going through a hard time. His reasons sounded possible. More importantly, I wanted them to be true. Hope can make a weak story sound strong. Grace met him only once. Ethan arrived at the shop while she was helping me clean. He was friendly, but he stayed less than 5 minutes and left when 2 customers entered. Afterward, Grace watched him through the window. "Why does he always look ready to run?" she asked. I laughed and told her he was busy. She did not laugh with me. A month later, Ethan gave me a silver necklace with a small flower on it. He placed it around my neck in my kitchen and said, "I wish I had met you at a different time in my life." The sentence made me uneasy. I asked what he meant, but he kissed my forehead and said he was only tired. I let the question disappear. Then came the hotel delivery and the family under the silver sign. I drove home through the rain, but I did not go upstairs. I sat in my car for almost an hour. Ethan called twice, and I watched his name light up the screen. On the 3rd call, I answered. "Where are you?" he asked. His voice was low and worried. "I was at the Riverside Hotel," I said. "I saw you." For several seconds, he said nothing. I could hear people talking behind him, then a door closed. When he spoke again, his voice had changed. "Nora, I can explain. Are you married?" He took a slow breath. "Yes." That one word hurt more than a long lie. I closed my eyes and held the phone away from my face. I wanted to shout, but my body felt cold and weak. Ethan asked to meet me. I said no. He asked again, and I told him never to come to the shop. The next morning, Grace found me sitting on the floor beside my bed. I had sent her a short message before sunrise. She came with coffee, bread, and no questions at first. When I finally told her everything, she held my hand. She did not say, "I warned you." She only said, "You did not know. What matters now is what you do after knowing." For 6 days, I ignored Ethan. He sent messages every morning and every night. He said his marriage had been unhappy for years. He said he and his wife, Claire, slept in different rooms. He said they stayed together only because of their children, 9-year-old Lucas and 6-year-old Sophie. He said he had planned to tell me. On the 7th day, he came to the shop before opening. He stood outside in the cold with no coat. I should have kept the door locked, but when I saw his face, I let him in. He looked tired. His eyes were red, and his hands shook as he spoke. He said meeting me had shown him that he could still love someone. "I know I lied by staying silent," he said. "But what I feel for you is real. Please do not end this before I can make things right." I asked when he would tell Claire. He looked down and said the children were too young for a sudden change. He needed time to prepare them. "How much time?" I asked. "I do not know. A few months, maybe." A few months did not sound impossible. I loved him, and I wanted the pain to have a reason. So I made the choice Grace feared I would make. I stayed. At first, staying felt like hope. Ethan became more careful and more loving. He brought dinner to my apartment, repaired a shelf in my kitchen, and left notes inside the books I was reading. He promised that our hidden life was only temporary. He spoke about a future house with a small garden. He said he wanted to wake beside me without checking the time. But months passed, and nothing outside my apartment changed. Ethan still went home every night. He still spent weekends with his family. When summer arrived, he said it was a bad time because the children were out of school. In the fall, he said Lucas was having trouble with his classes. Before Christmas, Claire's father became ill. My own life became smaller. I stopped taking Sunday walks with Grace because Ethan sometimes visited on Sunday afternoons. I stopped joining the shop owner for local events because I feared seeing him with his family. I kept my phone beside me at all times. A message from Ethan could change my whole day. No message could destroy it. One evening, I cooked his favorite meal and waited for 3 hours. At 10, he wrote that Sophie had a fever and he could not come. I understood that a sick child needed her father, but I still cried over the cold food. Grace watched me become quieter. She invited me to dinner, movies, and weekend markets. I often said no, then sat alone in my apartment. "You are arranging your whole life around the small empty spaces in his," she told me one afternoon. Her words hurt because they were true. I asked her not to judge me. She said she was not judging me. She was afraid I was disappearing. A few weeks later, Claire entered the flower shop. I knew her at once. She wore her hair differently from the night at the hotel, but she had the same clear eyes and calm face. Sophie walked beside her, holding a red balloon. My hands became cold. Claire did not know me. To her, I was only the woman behind the flower counter. She asked for white lilies and soft pink roses. I tried to keep my voice steady while I wrapped them. "Are they for someone special?" I asked, because it was the question I asked every customer. Claire smiled. "For my husband. Tomorrow is our 15th anniversary. We have had a difficult year, but he is trying. I think we both are." I almost dropped the scissors. Sophie pointed to a small blue flower near the counter. "Daddy likes those," she said. "He buys flowers here sometimes." Claire looked around the shop. "Does he?" Ethan never remembers the names of flowers. I could not speak for a moment. Then I finished the bouquet, took her payment, and wished her a happy anniversary. After they left, I locked the front door and went into the back room. I sat on a box and stared at the wall. Ethan had told me his marriage was over. Claire had spoken like a woman trying to save it. One of them did not know the truth, and I suddenly understood that it was probably both of us. That evening, Ethan came to my apartment. I placed the silver necklace, the old notes, and the key he used for my building on the table. "Your wife came to the shop today," I said. His face lost its color. He asked what she knew. The question told me more than any answer could. "She knows nothing," I said. "She bought flowers for your anniversary. She believes you are trying to repair your marriage." Ethan walked to the window. He said Claire had misunderstood their situation. He said the flowers meant nothing. "Then what does mean something?" I asked. "Your words to me. Your promises to her. Which life is real?" He turned toward me. "You are the person I love. Then choose a life. Not someday. Choose one." He looked frightened. I gave him until the end of the month to speak honestly with Claire and make a clear decision. I hated giving him a deadline, but I hated waiting without one even more. For 2 weeks, he called every day. He said he was searching for an apartment. He said he was speaking with a family counselor. He said change was coming. I wanted to believe him, but I no longer accepted words without proof. On the last day of the month, I waited at home. Ethan had promised to come at 7. At 8, he sent no message. At 9, someone knocked on my door. I opened it and found Ethan standing in the hall with a travel bag. For one wild second, I thought he had chosen me. Then I saw the fear in his face. "Claire found some of our messages," he said. "She told me to leave." The room became very still. He had not told her the truth because he was ready. He was there because she had discovered it and pushed him out. "Can I stay here tonight?" he asked. I looked at the bag, then at the man I had waited for almost a year. This was the moment I had imagined many times, but it felt nothing like my dream. "What did you tell her?" I asked. He said he was confused. He said he needed time. He had not told Claire that he wanted a future with me. I stepped into the hall and closed my apartment door behind me. "You cannot stay here," I said. He stared at me. "But I left." "This is what you wanted." "No," I replied. "I wanted you to choose honestly. You did not leave. You were asked to go." He reached for my hand, but I moved back. He said he loved me. He said we could finally be together. I believed that he felt something real for me. But I also understood that real feeling does not remove the harm caused by lies. "You need to face your marriage, your children, and your choices," I said. "I cannot be the room where you hide from all of them." When he was gone, I went inside and locked the door. Then I sat on the kitchen floor and cried until morning. Ending the relationship did not make me feel strong at once. For several weeks, I felt empty. I missed his voice, his hands, and the future I had invented. But each morning, I made one small choice for myself. I left my phone in another room while I ate breakfast. I walked to work instead of waiting for a message. I began meeting Grace again. The first time we returned to the river walk, I could only manage 20 minutes. The next Sunday, we walked for an hour. I also visited my Aunt Lillian in New Bern. She lived in a small yellow house with a garden full of herbs. She did not ask me to explain every mistake. One day, I found an old rosebush behind her fence. Most of its branches were dry, but one green stem had begun to grow. "Should we cut it down?" I asked. Aunt Lillian touched the new leaves. "Not yet. Sometimes a plant needs the dead parts removed before it can use its strength again." When I returned to Wilmington, I opened every window in my apartment. I threw away the cold candles, old wine bottles, and hidden gifts that belonged to my life with Ethan. Ethan wrote twice after that. In the first message, he said he was staying with his brother. In the second, he said Claire wanted to try counseling for the children. I did not reply. His marriage was no longer a problem I could solve or a future I could wait for. At the flower shop, I changed the front window. I removed the dark winter design and filled it with green plants, yellow tulips, and white paper birds. Customers began stopping outside to take pictures. For the first time in many months, I felt proud of something that had nothing to do with Ethan. Grace encouraged me to join a weekly writing group at the public library. I almost refused. Then I remembered how many evenings I had once given to waiting. That was where I met Owen. He was 35 and worked at a local museum. He wrote slowly and often crossed out half of each page. The first time we spoke, he asked about the flower drawn on my notebook. Owen did not enter my life like a storm. He came like morning light, slowly and without noise. We drank coffee after the group. We visited a street market with Grace. He came to the shop during business hours and spoke to me even when other people were present. After several weeks, he asked me to dinner on a Saturday night. I almost laughed because Saturday had once been the day Ethan was never free. I told Owen part of the truth before our second date. I said I had loved a married man and had stayed after learning about his family. I expected him to pull away. Instead, he listened and asked, "What do you need now?" "Honesty," I said. "Even when it is uncomfortable." We moved slowly. There were no promises about forever. There were only clear plans, kept words, and ordinary days. Owen met Grace. He met my aunt. He helped at the shop during a busy holiday weekend and was terrible at tying ribbons. I laughed so hard that I had to sit down. It was the first time I noticed that my laughter had fully returned. Several months later, I saw Ethan again. He was standing across the street from the flower shop. He looked thinner, and his wedding ring was still on his hand. He entered the shop and said he wanted to apologize. He and Claire were still trying to repair their marriage. He said he had hurt everyone because he was too afraid to make an honest choice. Before leaving, he looked at the bright window display. "You changed the shop," he said. "Yes," I replied. "I changed many things." That evening, Owen waited outside until I closed. He did not ask what Ethan had wanted. He only looked at my face and asked whether I was all right. We walked toward the river as the sky turned gold. People passed us with children, dogs, shopping bags, and noisy conversations. Nothing about the evening was secret. Owen took my hand in the middle of the crowded street. I felt no fear, no guilt, and no need to look behind me. I once believed love was proved by how long I could wait. I thought pain showed that my feelings were deep. I thought being chosen in the end would make every lonely night worth it. Now I understand something different. Love should not require one person to become invisible. It should not grow through promises that only work in the dark. But I no longer wake up waiting for another person to decide what my life will be. I open the shop, arrange fresh flowers, meet Grace for coffee, and write on Thursday nights. The old rosebush at Aunt Lillian's house bloomed the next spring. She sent me a picture of one pale pink flower growing from the new stem. Sometimes it begins with a locked door, a returned necklace, and one painful night alone. Then, little by little, life grows back. Mine did.